Burning the Old Year, Naomi Shihab Nye. Letters swallow themselves in seconds. Notes, friends tied to the doorknob, transparent scarlet paper, sizzle like moth wings, marry the air. So much of any year is flammable. Lists of vegetables, partial poems, orange swirling flame of days. So little is a stone. Where there was something and suddenly isn't, an absence shouts, celebrates, leaves a space. I begin again with the smallest numbers. Quick dance, shuffle of losses and leaves. Only the things I didn't do crackle after the blazing dies. Naomi Shihab Nye's Burning of the Old Year describes a fire lit to burn the remnants of the past. She burns her unfinished and unaccomplished to-do list, letters received and letters begun but never sent. So little is a stone, Nye writes, recognizing the impermanence of almost everything we touch. She celebrates that which she chooses to release, writing, "When there was something and suddenly isn't, an absence shouts, celebrates, leaves a space. I begin again with the smallest numbers." In Nye's poem, letting go makes room for whatever will come after. She willingly releases that which no longer serves her. Shuffles of losses and leaves, she notes, as she watches the embers die to make fodder for the blossoming of the coming year. I often return to this poem around this time. I like to take inventory of the year behind me, all that I accomplished and all that slid through my fingers, gains and losses, connections and connections broken. I try to put down whatever I can, moving into the new year as unencumbered as possible. Release of the past can feel like taking a great, expansive breath after a deep exhale. The body feels full and alive again. The Buddhist practice of non-attachment means, in part, to release oneself from expectations. We attach ourselves to people, to things, to concepts, ideas, plans, goals, and particular visions of the future. We might then attempt, consciously or unconsciously, to bend to our will, that which we are attached to keep us safely perceiving reality as something we control. Because we are so attached to our expectations, we can grow disillusioned by the world and our place in it, especially when what we desire to possess remains out of our grasp or fails to materialize. Have you ever experienced something not going according to plan? From a picnic to a relationship, how did you feel when things began to go awry? When it started to rain on the blanket you'd laid so carefully in the sun? When the person you loved began to drift away? When your community made a choice that you disagreed with? Were you disappointed or sad, confused, angry? Did you blame yourself for what went wrong? Or maybe you resisted accountability, blamed somebody else? Or maybe you took a deep breath, looked at what was in front of you, and accepted the sudden change in plans, vowing to adapt to new circumstances with as much good nature as possible. Did everything eventually work out all right? I hope so. It often does. Fear can encourage us to remain attached to things that are no good for us. We are naturally wired to crave sameness and familiarity, even if what is familiar is not healthy or safe or really even comfortable. Human beings can even resist changing circumstances which perpetuate our pain or our anxiety or fear simply because they are familiar. The devil you know. Our patterns, particularly the patterns that we live out within our relationships to others, like our coworkers or our friends or our romantic partners or our family members, and often especially our family members, because often that family system is at least partially related to the root of whatever pattern it is that you're stuck in. Even the patterns that hurt us the most, they offer us a kind of sickly, familiar comfort. We resist release. We resist building the proverbial bonfire and burning whatever we most need to let go of because the uncertainty about what might come in to take its place scares us more than the scary things we're already holding. We tend to dismiss our own needs for something different or better, or maybe we don't believe there's a better way at all. We take the avoidant path. We minimize our suffering only to extend it out even more. We cling to what no longer serves us instead of opening our arms to what's meant for us. I've come to find that doing an intentional inventory of our relationships, our commitments, our responsibilities, our expectations, our hopes, and our non-negotiables, if we give ourselves time to think deeply about what experiences and connections truly call us towards our highest good, what makes us feel most alive and most like ourselves and most present and centered in life, when we do all of that, we can begin to put down what no longer feeds our soul and make more room for what gives our lives meaning and purpose and allows us to experience joy. If you haven't in a while, perhaps you could take a few moments this week to do your own inventory. Maybe while you sit with your morning coffee, take stock of how you spend your precious resource of time. What relationships, activities, creative pursuits, organizations, and communities are you involved in? Are you rooted in loving, supportive community? And if not, where can you find some? Is it right here at the CVUU? It certainly could be. Are you actively seeking to enrich yourself, mind, body, and spirit? What did that hymn say this morning? To learn, we know that learning is a way to live, or learning is life. Something about the pursuit of knowledge sort of keeping us engaged and healthy and alive. Think about what you might need to scrape off your plate to make room for more of life's delicious offerings. What are you coming to know about your life's purpose and your soul's joy? Why do we resist changing or getting rid of things with such intensity? The practice of non-attachment can also mean releasing and getting rid of literal stuff. Think about the way we resist giving up even material things we no longer need. We've all got excuses. Maybe someday we'll finally use that fancy cheese platter someone gave us when we got married 40 years ago. Maybe that old record player is worth some money. Maybe our adult children will suddenly want the trunk of kindergarten artwork we've been saving for all these decades. We don't want it. Maybe we'll just hold on to whatever it is for a few more years, let it collect a little more dust, for fear that we'd be failing to meet some sort of obligation to allow things we don't need or want to take up residency in our space. I'm going through this process right now, this very moment, as we pack up our home to move to the Cedar Valley. It's really hard to get rid of things, but it does lighten the spirit and the body and the moving truck. My dad owned a garbage business when I was a young kid, and I grew up with a really healthy perspective about junk and a natural curiosity about garbage. I know the cliche, one man's trash, is certainly true. I still own furniture my dad saved from the curb, and I've been known to make regular stops to peek into overflowing dumpsters. But this attitude towards repurposing other people's cast-offs comes with an awareness that just about every material item, except for the most precious and sentimental, is ultimately replaceable. Sometimes the only way to gain something new is to make room by getting rid of the old. We attach emotions to our material things, and many of us live in that perpetual scarcity mindset, afraid that what we give up can never be replaced, whether it should be or not. We don't recognize always that when something overflows, all things, precious or not, end up underwater. It can be so hard to give up what we've been carrying for so long, but the open space, the feeling that we can finally breathe and move unencumbered, offers us a deep release we only feel when we're willing to let go. I love the serenity prayer, the prayer that closes each Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Serenity means a sense of calm, of being untroubled by what's out of our control, like the past, like other people, like the whole hurting world. Grant me the courage to change the things I can. This prayer, spoken in unison by a community of people gathered to solve a problem that can only be solved within a community of mutual care and support, reminds us that while there is a lot that we are powerless over, change is possible, and even more possible when the powerless pool their power together. Better a forceful flood than a trickling garden hose to take out whatever colossal tyranny is telling us we can do nothing. Grant us the courage to change the things we can. The practice of non-attachment is not about ignoring or abandoning anything that causes us discomfort. Non-attachment actually asks us to stay present, to stay grounded in present reality, no matter how unbearable. Non-attachment pulls us up from a world sucking us down towards greater alignment with what the rhythms and vibrations of the universe are actually encouraging us towards, which is alignment and harmony with one another.